Hello and welcome. It is the World Mission Podcast. My name is Rusty Humphries. That is Greg Kelley. He's the CEO of World Mission. And World Mission, one of the finest organizations in the world, whose job is to do what, Greg Kelley?
Wow, Rusty. Well, I mean, first of all, it's the where we go, right? So
I'm guessing the world?
Yeah, actually not exactly. Believe it or not, that might be a little misleading. We work where the gospel's never been, going where Jesus is unknown. However you want to frame that, that's what we do. So the importance of that and the significance of that is the Great Commission, Jesus' last words, when he told us to go and make disciples of all nations. And so when we say all nations, that's not some, that's not the easy ones. That's not the places where it's easy, for example, to get a visa. Just hypothetically, if someone had a hard time getting a visa, hypothetically.
Yeah, I wonder who that could be.
So it's the places where Jesus has never been, which are going to be, by definition, the hard places where there's obstacles, where it is hard and not easy to get a visa, where there's barriers politically, spiritually, demographically, different people groups, anxieties and tensions. All those things make the gospel, they cause barriers to the gospel. That's where World Mission goes. And so, you've got a window. We talk about the 1040 window, which is shadowed in behind my shoulder there in the Eastern Hemisphere. When you start in the corner of West Africa, Senegal, and then you go 9,000 miles to the east and you end up in Indonesia and the Philippines, which is what we're talking about today. You've got 9,000 miles, Rusty, of the most unreached square mileage in the world, where 9 out of 10 people live who have never heard of Jesus. That's where we work.
Okay, now you are working on something in particular right now. We have some pictures and everything. There's kind of a spot in the world where there's some problems going on right now.
Yeah, it's something that we didn't hear a lot about. And of course, you and I are kind of specialists in talking about things that people don't hear a lot about. And in December, just 3 weeks ago, was one of the most devastating typhoons that had hit the planet. Hurricane, it'd be considered a class 5 or category 5 hurricane. This is a super typhoon that was called Typhoon Ray, and it just hammered the Philippines. The thing about the Philippines, Rusty, is it's really an island country. You've got literally thousands of islands from north to south, and they are in an area in the world that is prone to devastation. As a matter of fact, of the top 12, so listen to this, of the top 12 most disaster-prone cities in the world, 10 of them are in the Philippines. So we're talking earthquake, we're talking, typhoons, hurricanes, volcanoes, mudslides, epic flooding, disasters, natural disasters. 10 of the top 12 are cities in the Philippines. So it's not a matter of if, and it's mainly typhoons that are hitting there, although they get other things as well, earthquakes, tsunamis. They get everything, and they just got plastered by Typhoon Ray.
Wow. Let me ask you a question before we get into Typhoon Ray, and that is, there has been a U.S. presence in the Philippines for a long time. Why is this a place of interest for World Mission? You would think there would have been a lot of missionaries that had gone there before you, or is that just not the case?
No, I think the Philippines, of all the places we work, really, in the 1040 window, you can make a case that the Philippines is one that's been more receptive to the gospel. There's a lot of Catholicism in there, not a lot of Protestant Christianity, but there is a big movement from their neighbor in the south, which is Indonesia. So Indonesia is the most populated Muslim country in the world, and there's been a lot of, we could say, some of the more radical aspects of Islam moving from Indonesia into the southern islands in the Philippines, in the southern part. And so from that standpoint, we do a lot of work down in that southern part, but we work in places where, again, there's not access to the gospel. And so just the fact that a place maybe has had a receptivity overall to the gospel doesn't mean that there's still not places cut off to the gospel. And what I mean by that is when you look at the Philippines, you might have an island here or there that is, there's a fair amount of Christian presence there, but you may have another island that's 100 miles away that's incredibly remote. And because of the geographic nature of it, it's been cut off in some ways. So you have some of that aspect going on. There's a lot of really of all the places I've been in the world, the Philippines has some of the most sort of rural feeling places. I mean, you can't get a vehicle there. Certainly couldn't get there on a bike. You couldn't even get there on a motorcycle. The only way you can get to some of these places is on a horse, because it's so steep and it's muddy and all this and that. And you got all these villages and communities. So we have a massive network of tribal pastors that are going into these areas that, you feel like you just sort of went through some kind of a time warp thing and got transplanted back in time when you show up in these villages. But
yeah. I mean, Greg is absolutely true. I mean, I've been in Cambodia, where I remember we took some girls, we drove a little family a couple of miles, and it was the first time they'd ever been in a car.
Yeah.
And it sounds like Philippines is even more remote.
Yeah, exactly. There's islands on the Philippines that, outsiders have never been to and never stepped foot on. One of the islands I had read, just going back to this impact of this typhoon, Rusty, is called Dinagat, Dinagat. So it's an island, one of the thousands of islands in the Philippines, had 2,000 homes on it. And there's only 9 that are standing.
Oh my goodness.
Literally, they just got wiped out. So when these typhoons come through and push all this water, anything that's near the coastal areas is just destroyed and wiped out. And of course, you had hundreds of fatalities. Lots of people are still missing. And so it was absolutely devastating. Even though we didn't hear much about it, it was one of the most powerful storms of 2021. It just happened to happen right at the end of the year, as we were, kind of going into the holiday festivities and last thing on our mind. But there's a lot of suffering people right now. I mean, there's a million people, Rusty, that had their homes damaged. And they're saying up to 13 million people were adversely affected by this. So that means some of them, their home was destroyed. Others, maybe, the roads were cut off. It's difficult for them to get in, to, find supplies, materials. The water supply was affected. There was a lot of rice fields and sugarcane fields that are totally destroyed. So people now are without their food source. So it is just a devastating situation that they're dealing with right now, and it will go on for months afterwards.
So are these pictures we have here with some folks, is this the area we're talking about?
Yeah, exactly. These are areas. These are, you see that Jesus Cares relief operation. That's essentially with our international partners there, and that's aid that World Mission has been able to send in. With the 3 areas that we focus our humanitarian focus on, Rusty, is clean water, medical, or disaster relief. So this fits right in our wheelhouse. Mm-hmm. The reason we chose those 3 is because without exception, everywhere we work in the world, one of those humanitarian keys will unlock the heart of the people there, because there's a need there. And as we're coming along and being the hands and feet of Jesus, one of those 3 things are going to access the heart of the people as we just do the right thing, right? You're just doing the right thing. And so here, these are examples of aid that we've sent in. People have lost everything. They've lost their food. They've lost their water. They've lost their shelter. And so we've sent in a lot of tarps, a lot of food, a lot of clean water initiatives are going on. And the government, the thing about it, Rusty, is the government's just throwing their hands up. They're like, we can't do anything. Their funds have been totally depleted by COVID response stuff.
Wow.
So they are just beside themselves. So these kind of outreaches that we're seeing here, the first thing that we need to recognize is they're all being done and implemented by local church leaders. So i.e. the World Mission Network. So they come along. It's not conditional. Hey, if you will listen to the gospel or receive this treasure, then we'll give this to you. Not at all. We just love them unconditionally. Everybody, they could spit in their face and they'd still give them one of those boxes of aid. And then many times what happens, Rusty, is as people receive this, because they don't have anything, they've lost everything. They're just scratching their head and they're like, you don't know us. Why are you doing this? And of course, that creates a tremendous opportunity to share the gospel, give them treasures. All of those pictures you saw, treasures are being distributed.
What is this? These yellow bags? The kid in the Lakers jersey. But what are these? What are these bags? These are a little bit different.
Different. These bags, these are some basic necessities. You're going to have some rice in there, some oil, some sugar, just some supplies that will last 3 or 4 days, just to get them by. They literally are in crisis mode. We were told stories that the food supply is almost like gone.
Wow.
In a number of these areas. I mean, it's not like, hey, it's getting bad. It's like the food is almost gone. And so we're mobilizing our leaders in other areas. Mindanao, for example, which is a large island in the southern part. We're mobilizing leaders from there, and they're moving northward, and they're going into the devastated areas that were affected, and they're just loving on them.
So is this some of your leader groups? I see there's a motorcycle there, so I'm guessing that's one of your guys.
Exactly, one of our leaders right there. So he's orchestrating this distribution, gathering the people together. All of them they have this amazing heart of gratitude and appreciation because, they're looking, I mean, just imagine being a father or a mother and you're looking at your 3-year-old, your 5-year-old son or daughter, and you're wondering, how am I going to feed them the next 3 days? I don't know how I'm going to do it. And so when you come into that environment and you like bring them up from the depths of despair and just love on them, give them food, clean water, a tarp to give them some shelter, you get that kind of response. Just amazing gratitude, appreciation. That's in a very remote area. You can kind of get the sense that she doesn't have much.
Yeah. But she's got a big smile, very happy.
Big smile. So thankful.
I don't know what's in this bag, you think? Is that rice?
Yeah, there would be, yep, exactly. There'd be some rice in there. There's some oil in there, just some ingredients. So she can probably, we try to also, give them a chicken or something, like give them some protein of some kind, if at all possible. But it goes such a long ways. And when you're really intentional about it ahead of time, nobody can predict when, in this case, a typhoon comes through. We know natural disasters will happen. I mean, we know. We can't predict when you remember 5 years ago or whatever it was, that horrible earthquake in Nepal. That was devastating. You don't know when the next earthquake, typhoon, volcano, or natural disaster is going to happen, but you know it's going to happen. Yeah. And so we try to be prepared ahead of time so that we can mobilize. I mean, we were mobilizing resources the next day.
Wow.
And because we have networks on the ground, they can go to another neighboring island and get some resources, bring them in there. The point is that everything in that particular, I mean, if you've got, what is that? 1,991 out of 2,000 homes destroyed. I mean, that is catastrophic. That is absolutely catastrophic. There's nothing left on that island. And so you need to mobilize resources from off that island immediately, because these people, I mean, the salt water has destroyed all the freshwater sources. As I said, the rice fields, which is their staple of food, are destroyed because of the flooding. The same with the sugarcane. You need to act immediately. So we really try to position ourselves to be able to do that. But obviously, it's support from friends like who are watching the World Mission Update. That's what allows us to do it.
So this is where we ask for your help and ask where the Lord leads you, the Spirit leads you. Go to worldmission.cc. It's worldmission.cc, not .com, .cc. See all the great work that Greg Kelley and his team around the world are doing, and please help where you can. It does make an incredible difference to people that have absolutely nothing. And not only are you helping them with food and water and filters, but you're helping them feed their soul.
That's right.
bringing them the Treasure, which is a solar-powered audio Bible with Bible stories in over 5,000 different languages for each little tribe we go to, each nation, as Greg would say. We're able to bring these solar-powered audio Bibles in, and they don't listen to them for like 2 minutes and toss them. They tend to listen 10 people at a time every night for 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
So please, Greg, let everyone know what we should do to help.
Yeah, absolutely. Rusty, you and I don't speak Tagalog or Cebuano, but that's what they speak in the Philippines. And because of the generosity and prayers of our friends here that watch the World Mission Update, that's exactly what's happening. The word's going out. We don't have to go there. We don't have to go to the Philippines or any of these other countries that Rusty and I speak about. But when you go to the worldmission.cc website, you can go there. Literally, you can go there and be the hands and feet of Jesus to people who have lost everything. So for that, we are incredibly grateful.
Absolutely. So please, again, go to worldmission.cc. We do appreciate you. We've got some adventures coming up. I don't want to tell you about them quite yet, but just know adventure is on the way. Yeah, to some pretty amazing and a little bit hairy, scary places, but we'll tell you about that coming up next week. Make sure you hit the subscribe button and the notification button, the little bell there, so you don't miss any future updates of the World Mission Update, and we sure appreciate you. For Greg Kelley, I'm Rusty Humphries, and this is the World Mission Update Podcast.